The Zeltari were not impressed. Orbiting above a planet called Earth, they observed a noisy, polluted world brimming with chaotic life. Their scanners picked up basic electromagnetic signals, primitive satellites, and biological life teeming in every biome. But what drew their interest wasn't humanity. It was a fauna. From orbit, Earth looked like a zoo without cages. Forests, deserts, oceans, tundras, all full of creatures with vibrant colors, sharp teeth, and strange behaviors. For the Zeltari, a species of galactic scientists who had cataloged over 10,000 worlds, this planet was an anomaly. Its biosphere was erratic but fascinating. Earth was the perfect place for a full ecological study. Their High Council approved a Level 1 biological survey. No need to engage with the locals. Humans weren't considered priority. They lacked advanced spaceflight, and their weapons, while loud, were inefficient. Instead, attention turned to subservient animals, creatures that responded to whistles, that lived indoors, that ate from bowls. Harmless, amusing, a dozen stealth pods deployed around the globe, deep jungle, frozen poles, coastal waters, urban outskirts. Each team focused on different species. In the Amazon, scouts observed jaguars slipping through the trees. In Africa, lions hunted wildebeest. In North America, wolves stalked elk. Every biome had its cast of characters, but the aliens didn't fear them. They saw the animals as unorganized, instinctual, and predictable. One pod recorded a scene in a human home, a cat leaping onto a table, knocking over a glass. The Zeltari interpreted this as playful rebellion. Another clip showed a dog barking at a vacuum cleaner. Their scientists chuckled at the absurdity. Earth animals, they decided, were cute, a term they adopted from intercepted human data, meaning visually appealing and harmless. On day 6, they attempted their first capture, a red fox in the Scottish Highlands. A simple dart was fired. The creature collapsed. Success. But 10 minutes later, alarms blared. The fox woke mid-transport, bit through the soft restraints, and escaped into the trees. In the chaos, it stole a data pad and vanished. Minor injury to one crew member. 2 fingers punctured. The incident was marked as a statistical outlier. The animal was deemed unusually aggressive. Adaptive reflex anomaly. The logs read. Then came the second attempt. In Kenya, they targeted a small troop of baboons. More tranquilizers, stronger containment. This time they captured 3. The creatures seemed docile. That night, surveillance footage showed the eldest baboon using its foot to unscrew a panel. Then it freed the others. They disabled power to the lab and vanished. One crew member was found unconscious, a bloodied wrench beside him. Still, the consensus held. Earth's fauna were amusing, troublesome at most, but not dangerous. They pressed on. In Brazil, they set up a full biology station deep in the jungle. Camouflage, quiet. They launched drones, tagged creatures, and monitored patterns. Their logs filled with gigabytes of data. Jaguar hunting strategies, the coordination of army ants, the mating calls of frogs. At night, glowing insects flickered across the screens. They initiated Capture Protocol 3, a semi-domesticated wild dog pack, roaming near a remote village. Using bait and sedatives, they lured several into containment. At first, success. But during data extraction, one dog began twitching before sedation fully took hold. It bit through a technician's suit and crushed a thin conduit line. Sparks erupted. The dog yelped and died, but the resulting arc fried 2 critical systems. Within hours, more issues emerged. One crew member's wound turned black. The medical scanner flagged unknown microbial activity. Antibiotic reserves were ineffective. Flesh degraded rapidly. The AI medic called it extreme localized necrosis with accelerated pathogen mutation. The bite became fatal within 36 hours. It was a first death. Autopsy results showed Earth bacteria, resisting over 100 antiseptic compounds. The microbes had evolved in a brutal environment, exposed to generations of human antibiotics. Zeltari immune systems, unaccustomed to such microscopic warfare, were defenseless. Despite this, the study continued. The leadership feared appearing weak. One death did not justify evacuation. Meanwhile, sensors at the perimeter picked up unusual patterns. Creatures probing the field lines. One was a snake. It entered through a ventilation shaft. The species was unknown, later identified through human databases as Bothrops atrox, a pit viper. A crew member leaned too close. The bite lasted half a second. He collapsed in 20. No pulse by the end of the minute. Poison analysis showed a compound with enzymatic properties that liquefied tissue. The AI systems couldn't comprehend such a potent natural weapon. It triggered a red-level biological alert. Panic swept through the station. Workers sealed vents, recalibrated shields, double scans. But the jungle didn't sleep. Howler monkeys screamed at dawn. Insects whirred against glass. The trees themselves dripped unknown fluids. Everything moved, everything hunted. Then came the ants. The night watch lost contact. When backup arrived, they found only scattered equipment and shredded uniforms. Surveillance footage revealed a swarm of leafcutter ants dismantling everything organic in their path. The crew member never stood a chance. They carried his remains into the canopy. Insect density spiked. Every hour brought a new sting, a new fever, a new unidentified compound. Even with shielding, alien bodies were too vulnerable. Their suits tore on thorns. Their skin blistered from unseen spores. One technician collapsed after brushing against what humans called a bullet ant. His scream lasted 3 hours before silence. Morale shattered. Their reports changed tone from scientific curiosity to clinical dread. Aggression in Earth fauna appears system-wide. Not anomalous, but evolutionary standard. A lone crew member suggested Earth might be a Class 4 death world. The claim was dismissed. But then came the chimpanzee. Captured with heavy sedation and locked in a triple-reinforced enclosure, it was supposed to be a highlight specimen. Early scans showed heightened intelligence. But within a day, the chimp stole a drop tool. Then another. Hours later, it disassembled a vent panel using a Zeltari torque driver. The creature escaped, opened 6 animal pens, and activated a water valve that short-circuited the southern wing. The animals fled into the jungle. The crew barely contained the resulting chaos. When command was briefed, their response was direct. Reinforce the station. Continue acquisition. Earth is not to be feared. But the commander had stopped believing that. He reviewed the footage of the chimp, watched it learning, mimicking, adapting. Then the red fox incident. The baboons. The dogs. Each animal wasn't just reacting. They were thinking, testing, learning. This wasn't a planet of passive biology. It was a planet of evolved killers. He made a note in his private log. It read, "Earth's beauty is a lie. This place is not a zoo. It's a battlefield. And we are trespassers." The next attempt focused on control. The commander demanded no more improvisation, no more arrogance. Every capture would be fully mechanized, sterile, and precise. A new mission targeted a group of wild canines in the savannah region. Multiple drones, auto darts, and reinforced containment cages were deployed. They captured 7 dogs. The tranquilizers worked. The animals were sedated, tagged, and moved into holding cells. The station entered a temporary state of calm. Then one of the dogs moved. It twitched, then jolted upright long before the sedative's predicted fade-out. The others followed. The team scrambled. One dog rammed the door. Another sank its teeth into a technician's arm through bars. 3 more began barking in calculated intervals. That wasn't panic. It was coordination. A sudden rupture. 2 holding cells failed. For animals burst free, ignoring the exits and running straight for the equipment room. Not aimless. Targeted. They found power cables and cooling lines. One dog latched onto a heat pipe bit down and thrashed until the entire console sparked and shut down. It burned alive doing it. The station plunged into partial blackout. The alarms didn't just alert the crew. They disturbed something in the forest. The heat sensors caught a rapid influx of local predators. Big cats, serpents, even birds. Something had shifted. The jungle was no longer watching. It was listening, moving, converging. That night, the medical unit diagnosed 2 more infections from canine bites. This time, The necrosis spread faster. The AI failed to identify the cause. Dozens of microbial strains were attacking simultaneously, mutating under observation. One strain exhibited retroviral behavior, adapting to Zeltari enzymes within minutes. Nothing in the databanks matched. Even the AI began to hesitate. Then came the swarm. A low hum preceded it, faint, persistent. Within seconds, the station's exterior lights flickered, and then they came. Bees. Not like those cataloged before. These moved in organized waves. They weren't looking for flowers. They were drawn to body heat, exposed like carbon dioxide. One crew member was stung repeatedly, over 100 times. He dropped within minutes. The AI flagged anaphylactic shock, neurotoxin overload, and internal swelling. The rest of the crew sealed themselves in, activating emergency repellents. It didn't matter. The bees didn't stop. They crawled into vents, attacked drones, nested in machinery. One nest formed inside a sensor dish, another in the landing pad lights. A second death. The report simply read, "Body unrecognizable." The jungle kept pressing. A viper coiled itself around a thermal pipe. A jaguar appeared 3 nights in a row and disappeared just as quickly. Primates were spotted in higher tree lines with sticks and broken tech, watching. The Zeltari locked down completely. No more excursions. No more captures. They switched to remote observation only. Still, threats found ways in. Insects crawled into the smallest seams. Water filters showed parasitic eggs. Mold grew on alloy surfaces. They sprayed. It came back. The very environment was weaponized. At one point, an internal drone spotted a fungus growing inside a seal room. Samples revealed digestive enzymes capable of breaking down living tissue. Spores released upon pressure. The AI suggested incineration. Even that barely slowed its growth. Air purifiers clogged. Oxygen levels dropped. One crew member collapsed from respiratory failure. Third death. Then, a break in the system. A snake, previously captured and secured, was found missing. The cage door wasn't forced. It had been unlocked. A review of surveillance showed a bird entering through a vent and pecking at the release latch. Hours later, a group of raccoons appeared near the base, unafraid, moving in strange patterns. Too many coincidences. The aliens stopped referring to them as animals. They started calling them organisms of tactical behavior. Desperation grew. Every attempt to leave failed. One drone ship was covered in vines overnight. Thick, sap-leaking tendrils that shorted its ignition. Another had its fuel lines chewed through by rodents that died afterward, but not before crippling the vessel. The commander demanded evacuation. He filed a Level 3 withdrawal request, citing biological containment failure and systemic ecosystem hostility. The reply from High Command arrived 6 hours later. Denied. Proceed with specimen acquisition. Contamination risk acceptable. That was the final break in morale. The crew began to disobey orders. One team tried to flee using a ground transport pod, hoping to reach an ocean for extraction. They didn't make it. No signal after 20 kilometers. Later scans found the wreckage in a ravine. No bodies. Just torn suits and a broken audio recorder, looping a single sound. Screeching. Not mechanical. Not human. Something watched the station constantly now. Drones that ventured out came back scratched or not at all. One returned with a tooth embedded in its chassis. A tooth that didn't match any known Earth species. The commander stopped sleeping. He watched old logs, trying to find a pattern. The red fox, the baboons, the chimpanzee, the dogs. Each incident escalated. Not just instinct. Adaptation, recognition, retaliation. Then came the chimp again. It had been presumed dead, killed in the flooding of the southern wing. But something had salvaged tech from that wing. A new drone, built from spare parts, approached the station. Its flight was erratic, but it transmitted a signal, a low-frequency pulse that matched the station's door codes. The security team shot it down. Inside, a message in binary, 16 characters. Translated into Zeltari symbols, it read, "We remember. You started it." A chill passed through the station. One of the scientists theorized that certain Earth animals might be experiencing behavioral acceleration, not evolution, learning, not over centuries, over days, watching, imitating, testing. The commander stared at the message. A warning, a fact. The jungle had stopped reacting randomly. It was responding. He made a new entry in his private log. They were never cute. They were never ours to take. They were just waiting for us to underestimate the first bite. The commander initiated a full lockdown. Every remaining drone was recalled. External sensors were tripled. No more samples. No more movement. They would wait for extraction, scheduled in 48 Earth hours. The crew, now reduced to 6, were pale, shaking, some refusing to sleep. They rigged traps around the station. Electric deterrents, ultrasonic repellents, gas vents. Still at night, they heard movement outside. Not aimless scurrying, deliberate, probing, testing. Day 36. Something severed the water line. The filtration tanks ran dry within hours. Emergency reserves were activated. When they checked the rupture site, it wasn't a clean break. It was chewed by something with molars. The pipe was wrapped in a saliva-rich substance that corroded the alloy. None of Earth's known species should have produced it. Analysis failed. The AI suggested viral bioenhancement, but rejected its own hypothesis seconds later. The commander stopped filing reports to High Command. They hadn't responded to the last 3. They weren't coming. Instead, he opened an encrypted channel and recorded a different kind of log. One not for scientists. One for anyone who might hear it later. If you find this, he said, you need to understand. This planet doesn't tolerate intrusion. It waits, then it bites. Not out of hunger, out of precision. That night, a power fluctuation darkened half the station. The repair crew, 2 engineers, went to inspect the core room. Only one returned. The other was found slumped in a corner, eyes open, veins blackened. There was a bite mark on his ankle. Small, possibly a spider. The AI refused to run an autopsy. It froze mid-command and rebooted without logging the death. The crew manually incinerated the body. Day 37. They noticed the lights dimming more frequently. Then a rhythmic clicking sound started, echoing through the vents. 2 structured to be mechanical failure. 2 patterned to be random noise. It repeated every 2 hours. One crew member claimed she saw eyes in the trees. Not one pair. Many, blinking in sync. Others began hearing sounds mimicking their voices. The AI was wiped and reinstalled. The mimicry persisted. Psychological breakdown? Possibly. Or maybe not. On day 38, they lost external communications. The tower uplink was intact, but the signal never left the atmosphere. Something was jamming it. A natural interference pattern didn't match. Instead, it pulsed in cycles, broadcast block cycles, perfectly timed to their own outgoing pings. This wasn't interference. It was suppression. The crew attempted to restore a backup relay drone to transmit manually. It activated and launched. 6 minutes later, it dropped from the sky. Recovery showed its wings chewed off. Not cut, not shot, chewed. The commander stared at the damage and made a decision. No more waiting. He authorized evacuation to the secondary lander located 2 kilometers east, left untouched because of terrain difficulties. It was the only uncorrupted transport still functional. They prepped supplies, armed themselves with thermal cutters, shock batons, repellent packs. No armor. The suits were too compromised, too thin. Their only goal: survive the walk, launch the lander, and abandon Earth. They left at dusk. The jungle was quiet. Too quiet. Every step felt monitored. Sensors on their belts pinged occasionally. Heat signatures nearby, always retreating just before contact. No animal charged them. No traps, just pressure. Psychological, persistent. They reached the ridge above the lander. It sat intact, its beacon blinking weakly. Relief washed over them, until one crewman slipped, sliding into the brush below. The rest scrambled to reach him. He was alive, scratched, panting, but something was wrong. His eyes were wide. His voice stuttered. "They're here!" Before anyone could ask who, something hit them. Not a beast. Not claws. Stones. Thrown with intent. Accuracy. They turned toward the tree line. Shapes moved in the shadows. Bipeds. Chimps. Dozens. Carrying tools. Some had sharpened sticks. Others held broken drone parts. One raised a scorched metal plate. Zeltari tech. They didn't attack. They approached, and then they spoke. Not language, but rhythm. Mimicked Zeltari tones. Mocking transmissions. One chimp stepped forward and dropped an item. A torn uniform with a name tag still attached. It belonged to the missing engineer. The commander raised his cutter. The chimps froze, then turned and vanished into the dark, deliberate, as if satisfied. The message was clear. The crew climbed into the lander. Systems engaged. Engines warmed. The launch sequence hit 70%, then halted. Something was interfering. Again, power drained in slow pulses. External vents clogged. A low hiss filled the cabin. One of the filters was sabotaged from within. A foul organic paste, loaded with spores, seeped through the cooling lines. The chimps hadn't stopped them. They'd led them. A trap. The commander manually overrode systems. Engaged auxiliary engines. Fuel purged. Flame ignited. They launched, but not before a final message pulsed across the station's abandoned frequency. Short, brutal, don't come back. The lander breached atmosphere. Inside, 4 crew remained. One was unconscious. Another wept quietly. The commander stared at Earth's receding form on the screen. No longer green. No longer beautiful. Just hostile. He opened a final log. This is not a death world because of its beasts. It's a death world because of its mind. Every animal on that planet is part of something bigger. Not a hive. Not a network. Something worse. A memory. A vengeance. Coordinated retaliation. He paused. They knew we saw them as cute. He ended the recording, and for the first time since arriving, he admitted the truth. They never stood a chance. The return journey should have been a relief, but the silence aboard the lander was thick, suffocating, for survivors sat surrounded by damaged systems and half-functional equipment, staring into the darkness between stars. The unconscious crew member, Lieutenant Varen, began convulsing halfway through the second cycle. They restrained him, but his veins had turned black, and his teeth clenched shut with unnatural force. He died without a sound. Autopsy was impossible. No one wanted to touch the body. The commander ordered a containment wrap and ejection into space. Before launching the remains, he scanned Varen's vitals again. Internal organ failure, neurological collapse, spore activity in the blood. Something from Earth had made it aboard. There would be no return to Zeltar. Without quarantine, they changed course. A deep space research outpost, Station IDOS 6, was the nearest uninhabited facility, 36 hours away. Automated systems, decontamination capabilities, and a secure lockdown. It was the only rational choice. The approach was smooth. The docking sequence auto-initiated. The crew disembarked without words, dragging half-melted equipment and fragmented logs. The commander uploaded all data into the outpost archive and initiated a full diagnostic on the lander. Then he ordered it jettisoned and burned. No trace could remain. The others slept. The commander didn't. He spent the night reviewing every log from Earth, again and again, searching for something he might have missed. He watched the moment the fox tilted its head. The exact frame when the dog bit through steel mesh. The instant the chimp used tools with deliberate aim. This wasn't just survival. This was strategy. Earth's biosphere had reacted like an immune system. Coordinated, adaptive, possibly aware. He wrote one sentence in his personal file. They don't forget. On day 2 aboard IDOS 6, when the crew, Medical Officer Lyra, started hearing things. Scratching sounds in the air vents. Clicking noises in the audio channels. At first, the commander assumed it was trauma. Delayed stress reactions were common. Then the lights dimmed again. Not a malfunction. A deliberate power drain. He checked the logs. No energy spikes. No overload. just consumption. Something in the system was using power from within. He activated internal surveillance. Motion in the corridor. Brief. Low to the ground. Too fast for a rodent. A blur. Then nothing. The team swept the section. No sign of intruders. No breach. Every seal held. Still, Lyra swore she saw a shape. Curved spine. Glinting eyes. Like the ones in the trees, she whispered. It followed us. Impossible. Then the air scrubbers began releasing a sweet scent, unprogrammed. Fungal. A chemical similar to the spores found in Varen's body. They ran a flush. Useless. The spores clung to the filters. They weren't dying. They were growing. Feeding on synthetic compounds. Evolving again. The commander ordered a hard shutdown of the atmospheric systems. The outpost dropped into emergency oxygen mode. But the damage had started. Second engineer Helic developed a fever. Tremors. His blood showed microscopic organisms clustering near neural tissue. Earth-born pathogens shouldn't survive space, let alone continue mutating. Yet they were. One night later, he attacked Lyra, not out of rage. He tried to bite her. They sedated him. He died 6 hours later. Autopsy showed something horrifying. His brain had sprouted filament growths. Fungal, fused with nerve tissue. Not invasive, integrated. It had learned to communicate with his biology. This was an infection. It was occupation. The commander faced the truth. They hadn't escaped Earth. They carried it with them. Not a beast. Not a virus. A pattern. He initiated the final protocol. Isolate and sterilize. He locked Lyra in the med bay after she began showing signs of auditory hallucinations. She begged him not to. Cried. Then laughed. Then sang a pattern that matched the clicking from the jungle. He sealed the door. He activated the outpost fusion core override. 30 minutes to overload. He began transmitting. This time, no request. No cry for help. A warning. To any listening vessel, this is Commander Raz Tyler of the Zeltari expedition. Do not return to Earth. I repeat, do not approach Earth. Do not study its wildlife. Do not interfere. What you see is not what exists. He paused, breathing shallow, hands trembling. Earth's animals are not wild. They are not innocent. They are not cute. That illusion is its defense mechanism. What lies beneath is unified, strategic, vengeful, a collective intelligence that waits for threats and then learns how to destroy them. He leaned into the console. We thought we could study it, control it, bring its life forms home. But Earth doesn't send soldiers. It sends messengers. Stowaways, microbial scouts, spores, minds made of instinct sharpened by memory. He looked up at the screen. The countdown hit 10 minutes. I don't know if Earth is alive or if something beneath it is. But I know this. It bit us, and the wound won't heal. He closed the log. Then silence. Minutes later, IDOS 6 vanished in a brief starburst of white-hot fire. The station, the spores, the crew, everything incinerated in a plasma bloom. But not before a small drone, launched minutes prior, zipped silently into the void. Inside, one final data core. Inert, quiet, until a faint light blinked inside it. A power surge. A low-frequency click. And deep within its memory banks, something watched.